Hello, it's Lisa with you today. We're going to talk about graphing on the calculator. I am going to be modeling with a Texas Instruments TI-84 today. You can use a TI-83, 84, or Inspire model calculator, which is required for this course. The use of these models will be demonstrated in the videos. First, we're going to draw a graph. We're going to go to the Y equal key on your calculator. So when you pull your calculator screen up, most of you should see just a blank screen. If you look at the buttons right underneath the window, this is where we're going to be focusing on in this video. So the first key on the left here says Y equals on it. When we're going to draw a graph, we want to hit that Y equals key, and then we're going to enter our equation. So there are, if you scroll down, you can use your arrow keys to scroll down. There are plots 1 through 0, so you can enter up to 10 different equations into your calculator. We're going to start with y1. We want y1 to be equal to 3x plus 5. So we're going to type 3. The x key, if your calculator is in the correct mode, when you click X, it should bring up the character X. If it does not, you should see your instructor in class and figure out how to set that mode correctly. We're going to do plus and the number 5. And our last direction then is to hit the graph key. On your calculator, Y equals is on the left-hand side and graph is the button on the right-hand side. When you graph it, you should get a straight line, right? We know from section module 5 that 3x plus 5 should be a linear function, a linear equation with a slope of 3 and a y-intercept of 5. If your graph does not look like this, you should change the window dimensions. There are two ways to do this. We're going to go over one way, and that is with your zoom functions. So if we look back at the calculator, the middle button here underneath your window says zoom. If you click on zoom, there are many options. If you go to number 6, so all you have to do is hit the number 6 on your calculator, and it will automatically zoom to a standard window. Now, when I talk about the standard window means that what you're looking at on the screen goes from -10 to 10 in the x direction and -10 to 10 in the y direction. And each one of the tick marks, each one of the little marks that you see represents 1 unit on your calculator. You may have learned other methods in high school, and you will probably learn other methods in your college algebra class if you take that class. A couple other zoom options that I did want to go over with you today. We have zoom out and zoom in. Zoom out will make the window bigger. Zoom in will make your window smaller. So if we look at the calculator and we choose zoom, option 2, zoom in. If I hit 2 and then I hit enter, it makes my window a lot smaller now. Okay. Now if I look at my tick marks, 1, 2, it's only going about -2.5 units in the x direction and the y direction. If I zoom out, on the other hand, so zoom 3, enter, zoom 3, enter, it makes my window much, much bigger. Okay, now it's so big that my tick marks don't show up very well. I can't tell where 1 unit is on my screen. But zoom 6 should work, that standard window should work for most of the functions that we're going to be doing in this section. So to graph equations on the calculator, the equation must be written in the form y equals. Type the equation into the y equals screen and hit graph. So let's do some examples. If we ask you to graph the following lines on the calculator. Our first example is y equals -2x plus 5. So on my calculator, I'm going to go to my y equals screen. And as long as my cursor is on that y1, if I hit my clear key, it'll erase everything that's in there. I want negative, remember negative on the bottom, 2x plus 5. And if I hit graph, negative 2x plus 5, negative 2 is the slope and 5 is my y-intercept. So when I look at this, I can tell a little bit. If I want to zoom in, I can maybe tell a little bit more. Zoom to enter. Now here I've lost my y-intercept, but I can kind of see down where my x-intercept should be. It looks like it's at about 2.5 units. Let me go back to my standard window. So when I graph an equation like this, if you're asked to draw a graph, I know my y-intercept is 5, and I know my slope is negative 2, and it went to about 2.5 on the calculator. So I'm going to do my 2 points, and then I'm going to draw my line. When you're doing graphs online in your MyLabs Plus account, we're going to do I'll bring up the MyLabs Plus in just a minute and we'll look at it, but you need to have 2 points in order to graph a line. All right, so here's an example of one of the homework problems. Graph the equation on your calculator. Y plus x equals negative 6. Complete the ordered pairs using the calculate option value. So on my calculator, what I can do is I'm going to go back to y equals, erase the function that I have there now, and what I need to do is I need to rewrite this equation in y equals format. To do that, I need to subtract x from each side, so I get y equals negative 6 minus x. So on my calculator, I will have negative 6 minus x, and I can graph that. And it says complete the ordered pairs using the calculate option value. So on our calculators, we're going to hit second, and this is in your workbook. I've skipped ahead a little bit. This is on page 76 in your workbook. If you hit second trace, one of the options there is to find the value. So I want option 1, find the value when x equals 0. So I type 0, enter, and it tells me at the bottom of the screen the point is at 0, 6. It's asking me to find another point as well for this particular homework problem. So I will do second trace, option 1 for value, and this time I want to find the value when x equals negative 6, enter. And now I have negative 6, 0, and it shows me on the calculator where that point is. So to do the online homework, okay, I need to click in the box. I'm going to have the point 0, what did we say, 0, negative 6, and negative 6, 0, enter, and then we're going to click to graph it. On the graph there is a line over here, so we're going to click line, and then we're going to do 0, negative 6, there's a point there, and negative 6, 0 is a point there. I'm going to save that and check my answer. And it likes my answer. So that's how we're graphing online. So we can find points by using calculate option. Calculate option value is number 1, and find those points. Let me close the homework back down, and we will go back to what you have in your workbook. Okay, but it's important when you're graphing things to always think about being able to identify some points so that you can graph them on your calculator. Let's go back to our y equals screen. This example, we're being asked to graph 5x plus y equals negative 3. First thing I need to do is subtract 5x from both sides, and I get y equals negative 5x minus 3, or negative 3 minus 5x. And that's what I'm going to type into my calculator. Negative 5x minus 3, enter, and graph. And here when we look at it, it's very hard to tell what those values are. If we do zoom in, we can see it a little bit better. Where are those values? Or just the trace key on the calculator, you can trace. You can go left and right, and you can see how it brings a cursor up there, and it'll show you approximately where you are. This is not an accurate measurement. I'm going to zoom back out so I can see. On here, it's very hard to get exact locations, but that was at about negative 0.6, and the other, our y-intercept, looks like it's at negative 3. From my equation, I can tell that. And so my line looks like that. Example 3, y equals negative 4. Can we graph that on our calculator? Yeah, because it's in y equals form, so we can do y equals negative 4. And when we graph it, look at what we get. We get a horizontal line. Okay, so y equals negative 4 is that horizontal line. That one I can graph quite easily on the calculator. Example 4 is beyond the scope of this class. What you need to know is that this is a vertical line, right? If it only has x in the equation, it's a vertical line. We need to go out to x equals 7, and there's not a nice way to do this on the calculator. So we're just going to talk about doing it by hand. Finding y-intercepts on the calculator. So we did this a little bit with that example that we did in the MyLabs Plus. Type the equation into the y equals screen and hit graph. Hit second trace and choose option 1 value, and we want to type in x equals 0. So when we look at an equation, y equals negative 2x plus 5, again we go back to our y equals screen. Come on. Clear. We're going to do y equals negative 2x plus 5. Graph it. To find the y-intercept, second trace, option 1 for value at x equals 0, and it shows me on the graph where my y-intercept is. So my y-intercept is at the point 0, 5. Let's do another example. Find the y-intercept for y equals 3x minus 2. Again, on the calculator, y equals 3x minus 2. Graph. Second trace, option 1 for value at x equals 0. Enter, and we get y equals negative 2. So our point, our y-intercept, is the point 0, negative 2, which of course matches what we know about the equation, y equals mx plus b. Next, we're going to use that same calculate option to find some values for y when x equals 3. Go back to our calculator. Y equals, here we have 4x minus 2. Enter graph. So my graph looks like, and I want to find the value when x equals 3. I'm going to do second trace value, and I'm going to plug in x equals 3. When x equals 3, y equals 10. So the answer here, y equals 10. Example number 2 says x equals 6y minus 5. Remember, we have to solve for y. So if I add 5 to both sides, I get x plus 5 equals 6y. Divide both sides by 6. You can do every term by 6, and we get x divided by 6 plus 5 divided by 6 equals y. That's what we're going to type in, excuse me, as our equation. Y equals x divided by 6 plus 5 divided by 6. Graph it. If I want to find the value when x equals 3, second trace value at x equals 3, enter. And at x equals 3, my y value is 1.3 repeating. Okay. In directions, oftentimes if you get decimals, it will direct you to round off. In this case, we didn't have any directions to round off, so we're giving the answer as it shows on the calculator. That concludes the video for section 6.1. Proceed to the homework and the quiz. Have a great afternoon, everyone.